What up? This is Rama Screen, and in the anticipation of Burn It All, which arrives in theaters and on VOD February 19th, I'm here talking with the director and also the star of this film, Brady Hall and Elizabeth Cotter. How are you, Brady and Elizabeth?
Doing
Good,
great.
how are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time. Congrats on the film. Let me start with you, Brady, since you also wrote the script for this. Tell me your inspiration behind Burn It All. What led you to wanting to make this film?
Well, I've done a bunch of movies in the past, and once in a while I'll have like a little bit of combat or fight scene or something. And I've always really enjoyed that, especially being a kid of the 80s who grew up in the heyday of action films. So it's kind of baked into my DNA a little bit just to enjoy that stuff. So I wanted to make something a little more robust in terms of the action. And I also wanted to make something that had a bit of a statement and a commentary. And so I've done a lot of kind of personal growth in terms of like understanding misogyny and patriarchy and how I contribute to it and benefit from it. So I kind of want to take those two things and smush them together and wrap it in a candy coated shell of the underground organ smuggling market, the red market it's called. And so that's just kind of how it all came together, just all gelled together from those three different things. And here we are.
And was Elizabeth your first and only choice to play the lead character, Alex?
I mean, no, I definitely thought of her because I knew her. And there was a couple other people that auditioned, and we just really wanted to make sure we explored our options, which are limited in Seattle. It's like we could have found, women who can act and do stunts in LA, but then just flying them up and all that yada yada. And just the way we were doing it, it wouldn't have worked to have somebody who wasn't local. So there's not a lot of people in the area that fit that bill. So we auditioned, I think, 3 different people, and Elizabeth's was by far the best that we liked. So yeah, it wasn't a one and done thing, but it wasn't a very large, complicated process.
Elizabeth, awesome seeing you brunette instead of blonde. That's a good look.
Thank you.
I've
Thank
read
you.
you. I've read your brief profile. You are also a stunt woman who hailed from the United Stuntmen's Association, and you also have a background in wrestling and martial arts. My God, that is impressive. I do not want to get
Thank you.
on your bad side. Uh, that's for sure. So let me ask you the same question that's been asked of your character in this film over and over again. Why do you think Alex is so angry?
Such a good question. Alex is angry for a lot of reasons. Um, Primarily the fact that she's tired. She's tired. She's tired of men being a handful and treating her less than what she knows she deserves, which is the greatest thing ever to come of this character, I think. Alex realizes what she wants. Alex realizes what she deserves, and throughout the film, you notice that growth. So Alex is more so mad because her life has been nothing but guys flying off the handle. Like that's really what it comes down to. And she's ready to fight, and she's ready to change that.
Your stunt woman skills, your martial art and wrestling skills, how did those help with you on screen, your on-screen performance, specifically with the fight choreographies?
It was immensely important for me to like brush up, if not 100% in those skills prior to me even stepping foot on set. So it was very important. And I was lucky enough that at the time of my audition, I was in China way before COVID, doing a live stunt show. So I was already fighting on a day-to-day basis for a live audience. So all of those skills had to be super sharp. And then when I found out that I was going to be attached to the project, I brushed up even more, worked on weapon skills, like you name it, we were able to do it because we had a whole set of stunt people just hanging out and running shows as it was. And I feel like it made my job that much easier because it wasn't something I had to think about consciously. Fighting is just, it's kind of in my blood, you know?
And I'm sure you did your
Yes.
stunts in this film, correct? And
I
go ahead.
did. I want to give credit. I want to give credit to Becky. And this is like, she's amazing. So Becky was my stunt double. And she's who you see flying through the glass. In this film, she did an incredible job. Brady can elaborate because it was incredible. But I did do about 75% of my own stunts. And then Becky just handled the crazy stuff.
On that note, did you coordinate the fights or choreograph the fights, or was there a different fight coordinator on the set?
Peter Drago was our stunt coordinator, and he's an incredible stuntman to begin with. I've known him for quite some time now. He actually trained me in Flory-Barnes, like straight out of stunt school, fresh out of stunt school. He was willing to work with me. which was really cool and helped me like develop as a stunt performer. But he came up with the fight choreography. I do know Brady had a huge say in that as well, because being a director, you do have a lot to do with what things should look like and how they should feel. So between the two of them, I was happy to just say, hey, take the reins on this and I will do whatever you want me to do.
Brady, back to you. I'm a big fan of martial art and fight movies in general. I grew up in Asia, so it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
There are several fight scenes in this film in which there is no music accompanying it. Usually, there's an intense score that would accompany those fights, but you kind of just let the fights kind of just run with it, so to speak. So, what's the reason behind that?
I mean, I started out, everything had music to it, and a lot of those scenes just didn't feel right. They didn't work. And I know what you're saying is like historically there's usually some kind of like pumping, like
Yeah.
heavy metal or like techno music behind fight scenes. And in recent years I've noticed that a lot of like bigger movies are not doing that. They're going for just the Foley and just the fight sounds, and I really like that. I'm a fan of that. And I think that can make it seem more real. And I'm trying to think back to like, because I don't like that Bourne Identity, like super shaky cam, like you can't tell what's going on, or like the Transformers, like there's metal flying around the city and I'm not really sure what's happening. I like being able to see it. And that's, you say the Asian movies. I was a big fan of like Jackie
Yes.
Chan movies and Jet Li and stuff back in the day. And like those, like Drunken Master 2, like the camera's way back. You can see everybody, you can see the whole room, and they're fighting for 30 seconds on a take and just beating the crap out of each other. And you can really feel what's going on. And so I wanted to try to tap into that as much as I could. Obviously, it's a limited budget. We don't have the time to block fights out that crazily. And it's handheld camera, but I really wanted to make the fights seem as real as possible. And I think having the music out of most of those scenes, obviously the big set piece, centerpiece fight scene has music to it, but it's kind of weird music, and I like that. So yeah, it was just really all in the interest of making things seem more visceral and more real. And like when you really hear those crunches and punches and stuff, it just feels more intense to me.
Also, Alex kind of reminds me of Paul Kersey, Charles Bronson's iconic Death Wish character. She's like the female Charles Bronson because they both carry a gun and walk around town and clean up trash. Was that part of the influence for Alex, or are there any other influences that you also drew from?
I didn't really think of Death Wish at all. I don't even think I've actually seen a Death Wish movie all the way through. I remember they were on cable all the time when I was a kid, and I would see like little snippets and stuff. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Is like because that character was kind of like nobody else is doing this, so I guess that's got to be me. And lock and loaded. So it's kind of that thing. So yeah, I mean, the influence was more just it was more a personal kind of story for Alex than it was cleaning up the neighborhood, because not that she doesn't care about anybody else, but just like right now the focus is her family and protecting the dignity of her mother and all that stuff. So it's very much motivated by her personal story. It's like I'm gonna be Death Wish, but just for my own personal timeline and protect the people I love. So that's kind of where that came from.
So Elizabeth, what do you think Alex's personal journey conveys in this current Me Too era?
Alex's personal journey conveys quite a lot. I mean, in the Me Too era, I think we're really lucky that we have a lot of people, not just women, that are willing to speak out and willing to help enlighten and educate through this conversation that so desperately needs to continue. But her personal journey really shows what can happen if those issues are not addressed. There's influences in the film that talk about assault and things of that nature, and you see the ramifications of what happens when those things are not properly handled. And I think it's amazing that we were able to pull that off, because there's no absolute like showcase of those things, but we draw from it. Like it's assumed that those things have happened, and you see how Alex has been eaten up by what happened to her. So her personal journey really does go up and down because of those assaults and the things that she's gone through. But what it conveys is that you can get through those things if we all continue this conversation of how to treat women appropriately.
Thank you for sharing that. And what's your take on that as well, Brady? What's your take on the themes of Burn It All?
I mean, yeah, to just kind of piggyback on what Elizabeth said, I think it's important to start these conversations and to talk about them and to kind of present them in a way that's not just a lecture. which is what we did here. It's an action film, but it also has a message. So it's kind of like coating the medicine in sugar. And it was important to kind of walk the line between being too preachy and not really like hitting the subject matter right. So I tried to walk that line and in keeping it, like, okay, I see what they're saying, but they're not shoving it down my throat. And I also thought it was really important to not just, I mean, it's very, the story is very much like men are crappy to women, but I also wanted to have a little bit of like, oh, well, maybe this woman wasn't the best to Alex either. Like mom wasn't the perfect mom. She did some things in the past that kind of she shouldn't have done. And granted, it was because of a thing that a man did, but it's just having that kind of black and white, like all men are bad, all women are great thing just doesn't work. It's not real. So having a good mixture of things, and even Alex herself has flaws that are explored in the movie. She can be a jerk, she can be rash, she can neglect her responsibilities. So just having that kind of murkiness, I think, adds to the realism.
All right, for my fans at home, go check out Burn It All, arriving in theaters and on VOD February 19th. Brady and Elizabeth, thank you for talking to me, and congratulations.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.